to another Bike Fast Facts. This is gonna be the Surly Disc Trucker. Officially, this is a few years late. The Surly Disc Trucker saw a bit of an update. Technically, it would have been in 2020, and obviously there's a lot going on in 2020. We didn't all keep up on everything bike related at the time. So this is the belated and delayed Bike Fast Facts walkthrough on the go. One of the best things about these bikes is they really just want to go. They are so stable. They feel like home. They're super capable, super fun. It's like if you never thought about a touring bike before and you're trying to just kind of get out and ride more, have fun, do a little everything, I think a trucker is probably just about the perfect bike. It's you know, it's smooth, it's stable, it's got decent tire clearance, it has all the fender and accessory mounts you could possibly hope for. So it just opens up so many doors if you want to just kind of try a few different things. So today we're talking about probably one of the most, I'd argue, notorious bikes ever that we stock, the Surly Disc Trucker, which previously you may also heard it just the regular Trucker, not the Disc Trucker, which is its predecessor. But the Disc Trucker has been probably the most notorious simply because it's been in the game for so long. It's steadily been something that people ask for by name. It is often considered like the benchmark for comparison. So we're gonna dig into some of the details on why it's such a great bike. So first off, Surly Disc Trucker. It's so notorious because it's such a good all-arounder. So if you're gonna try that one and done approach, it's probably a pretty safe bet. One thing Surly's known for is Surly Make It Your Own. That's their whole tagline. They sell, I believe, if I'm not correct or not mistaken, every bike they make you can order as a frame set as well. So you can customize it exactly how you like it, which I really appreciate. It's how I got my start riding Surlys, because I'm picky, I like changing things out, and it was a fun way to kind of, you know, learn a lot about bikes while buying a new bike. So what is so different from the old version? You also may know the Disc Trucker. It is the same model we have used for our touring bike rental program. We actually do have the older version. It'll get you pretty close if you're, you know, comparing, but there are some significant changes we're going to dig into a little more. The traditional or older version of the Disc Trucker, I often do describe as a more classic touring frame. It's going to be close to a level top tube, not necessarily exact on every size, but closer to it. And something that Surly had noticed a lot of their customers are doing are running a very tall stack under the stem, so a lot of spacers to raise up that front end. So to kind of alleviate the need for this, they just updated the geometry on this new version to actually just have a slightly taller head tube. So I would just describe one and done as geometry differences, largely due to taller stack, taller head tube. So not drastic, but it does make a difference for your total fit. So some of the differences here compared to the previous iteration of the Disc Trucker is largely due to the kind of minutia. What I mean by that is, if we're talking front to back on the bike, you're gonna notice that the new version, if you look at the axle, is now through axle. The previous version was quick release, which largely is good. I think for reverse compatibility, it may hurt it a little bit, but for, I think, the bulk of Surly's customer base, it's gonna be a plus. It's added a little more stability under the heavy braking, cornering. It's gonna just make sure the whole bike feels a little more secure. On the fork, we're gonna see not only your front-facing and rear-facing axle eyelets for fenders and racks, not only the mid-blade eyelet and inner and outer mid-blade, I should also clarify. But now we see that kind of more bike packing style, just kind of row of threaded mounts, so you can add additional water, different cargo options, so you're not stuck just using a low rider or maybe a platform front rack or one of Surly's racks they offer. So another comment on the front end of the bike here is if we move up past the stack height and the actual larger head tube, from this angle you might not be able to see, I'll catch it in another angle, but I'm currently riding the Surly truck stop handlebars, which is kind of a riser drop to also increase the reach. A lot of these changes are very comfort based, and obviously only like this one only affects the complete build. Another change we've seen now is going from a bar end shifter to a integrated shifter here, Sora 3x9, which is really nice. Gives you lots of options for gearing, about as high and wide as you could possibly want, in all honesty, and it has that kind of sportier feel like a more modern road bike. This bike's technically, in my opinion, a little big for me. I'm currently riding a 60 centimeter. I'm 6'2". I'm kind of, by most fit guides between sizes, usually a 58 and 60. I usually opt for a 58 and kind of size it up. The reason for that is my inseam is not super tall, and with the taller head tube, this does feel pretty big. Pretty tall up in the front too. So nice benefit of that is it does fit quite tall riders. So someone who might seemingly be outside the size range, because it has a nice tall stack, can definitely help out for fitting just bigger bodies, which is great. The reason I think so many people shop for touring bikes is they're such a good one and done, right? If you're looking for not only something to take on big adventures, full day rides, it's also just a great daily driver. It bridges the gap nicely between something, you know, maybe more cargo oriented. So it's still very capable, but you know, it rides like a bike. Yes, it's going to be a little heavier than maybe like a performance hybrid or a road bike, maybe even some gravel bikes, but it can do just about everything very well. So there's that. I think probably the biggest mistake a lot of new or returning cyclists get when they walk into the bike shop looking for their next bike is they come in and they say, I'd like a road bike. And I'd say for most of at least our customers, that's just flat out like the wrong choice. We're seeing more and more people gravitate towards mixed use trails, path riding. Here in Toronto, you may be able to tell I'm riding through some nice parks, but the road is choppy, or the path is choppy. And one thing that's great about these truckers is they have a nice sized tire that's gonna be, you know, fast enough on the road, capable enough off. And I think that's what's so exciting about this style of bike is you can carry more, you can ride further. It's a strong frame, so you can kind of ride it pretty hard. You can take it off road and kind of dabble in lots of different ways. Fender it, racks however you want, or rackless if you want. So the world is your oyster when you're looking at, you know, a touring bike, because you can kind of do whatever you want, however you want to do it, which I think is like the ethos of a touring bike. It's not going to be pigeonholed into one specific usage. It can just be like a hardy daily driver. If you're someone who like kills bikes, they just keep breaking stuff, I think a touring bike is a really logical choice. I know I tend to break a lot of stuff, so my main ride for high mileage is a touring bike, of course. It just makes a ton of sense. And I think what Surly's done with this update as well, they've done a really good job balancing the needs of a hardcore touring cyclist and just like the rest of us. It doesn't have to be, you know, specifically about the world's longest tour, but it can also just be about having some fun on a bike and getting out there. A couple of the notes too about specifically the trucker, you will notice some different wheel sizes. I'm not going to quote it from memory because I'm just kind of talking. I'll put it up on screen just to make sure I get it right and don't create any confusion. But they do offer two wheel sizes, 26-inch and 700C. And another thing that Surly does super well is the fact that they actually offer just a massive range of sizes. And I think a lot of people who are maybe not super entrenched in bikes like myself, often people don't like really take it serious how important bike fit is. The fact that they do the mixed wheel sizes is an interesting choice. It can be a little hard to parse through. It's not offered every size in both wheel sizes. There's a little bit of crossover in those kind of mid sizes, which I think from a casual rider's point of view, it's confusing. People sometimes have baggage about wheel sizes and do not want to ride one over the other. A wheel's a wheel in my opinion. Yes, in drastic extremes, it will feel different, but for the sake of like a touring bike, it's splitting hairs in my opinion. One thing I often kind of warn people about if they are considering a touring bike is the fact that a touring bike might not feel super exciting, right? You're gonna try it, it's gonna feel stable, it's gonna feel smooth. You might not feel the fastest, but that's usually a good sign, because if you think about the perception of speed, it's usually like a harsh riding bike is gonna feel fast, a smooth riding bike is gonna feel slow. So a little slower isn't necessarily a bad thing. And once again, just to clarify, I'm talking about perceived speed, not actual speed. A thinner tire, larger tire, stiffer, and more compliant frames. There's not necessarily a huge difference in actual speed versus effort, but there can be in perceived speed, because a more compliant frame, larger tires are both great ways to smooth out the ride. And ironically, when we're talking about touring, we're talking about a lot of travel over distance, right? So talking about travel over distance, what you really want is something you can kind of just keep comfortably churning out mileage, right? So if I'm able to just ride further more comfortably versus ride hard, fast, and feel really beat up, it's gonna be actually, ironically, considerably faster to have a bike that's just a smooth riding bike, and you're able to kind of just keep going indefinitely. So I think my bottom line is, if you want something that kind of can do everything and then some and grow with you, I think a Surly Disc Trucker is a super exciting bike to check out. I think it's also a really logical jumping off point for a lot of people, where they're like maybe riding a vintage bike and they're feeling the kind of limitations. Maybe that compliance on the vintage frame leans towards flexi, or maybe, you know, the tire clearance is limited. So a lot of the things that I see a lot of people wanting to change about a vintage bike, the Disc Trucker is already done. So it's kind of just the modern equivalent of that classic bike you already love. Wow, I'm consistently impressed with these bikes. So they just kind of feel like home when you jump on them. You just kind of want to keep riding them, which I think is always a good sign. The bike feels smooth and nice. Ooh. Yeah, I think the idea of a bike feeling like home, I think, is appropriate for a touring bike. And you know, I think a lot of people will feel at home on a touring bike like this. And as I was mentioning before, the reason I think this is the right bike for a lot of people is when someone thinks they want a road bike and they're like, ah, yeah, I want to ride more, I want to, you know, get in better shape. Finding something that's capable, that can grow with you, that can change. Like right now, I'm ripping up a gravel climb. I could easily do some road mileage on this thing. You could probably dabble with some single track. You could build this up with some flat bars if you want to make it more like a mountain bike. You can dabble some bike packing, some touring. Like, it's such a good jumping off point for people that I think it's often overlooked, because it might not seem like the most exciting bike just for a daily driver, but it opens up so many doors for you. So you should really give it a serious thought if you're, you know, curious about getting into biking more.